Hello, my name is Justin Leclue, and today I will be reviewing two Blu-rays, Dinosaur Valley Girls and Furious, from one of my favorite boutique Blu-ray companies working today, Visual Vengeance. Now, I will put a disclaimer at the beginning of this video that I have done and will do work for Visual Vengeance, but I was a fan before I was an employee of them, and while my videos and commentaries may be featured on some of the Blu-rays that I'm talking today, I make zero money from doing this video. I am literally doing it because I'm a huge fan and I want more people to watch these films. So first up, let's talk about Dinosaur Valley Girls. So Dinosaur Valley Girls is a movie that I always knew about because I learned a couple of years ago about its director, Donald F. Glut. Now, Donald F. Glut is a fascinating figure in that you may not have heard of him before, but he seems to be like one of the kings of monster kid Hollywood. This is a guy that I first learned about because there was a DVD release of short films that he had made. And I was kind of baffled why there was a release dedicated to one guy I had never heard of and his short films specifically. And these short films, which are like monster sci-fi homages that span most of his life, are, I'm gonna be honest, pretty amateurish, that they have that kind of like love and passion that you always want to see in movies, but maybe not the technical chops or the storytelling chops. But at the end of the day, I don't think it really matters for those kind of things. And I was amazed that it existed, and I assumed that was like a one-off, that maybe he knew somebody in the time of the DVD boom, and that's why there was a release of his short films. Like, had they become cult films at some point? And as the years passed, Donald F. Glut's name would pop out of nowhere. For example, he wrote so many books about movies, about vampires, about Frankensteins, about dinosaurs. This guy loves dinosaurs. I was reading a collection of Dark Horse comics and realized that the introduction was by Donald F. Glut because he had written these comics. Specifically, they were Dr. Spectre Gold Key comics. If you read anything that Donald F. Glut writes, he is so passionate about what he does and understanding of the genres, and he wants to push forward and do the best that he can in spheres where the people in charge don't care at all. Often it's for kids, they just want to push it out, and Glut has always been a guy that like wants to just put it all on screen. He talks about in the introduction to the Dr. Spectre comics that when he was working at Gold Key, there was a no crossover, no continuity rule, and he very carefully kind of like got other characters from previous comic books into his stories and just kind of slowly pushed it as far as he could. And he has written for seemingly every cartoon that came out in the 80s, even into the 90s. He wrote the novelization to Empire Strikes Back because he was good friends with George Lucas back in the day. He's a guy that like everybody knows who's a monster kid in LA, but he never really had like that cult classic movie that everybody would know. The closest he's ever gotten would probably be a Dinosaur Valley Girls, which was his directorial debut. And I even remember seeing like at a used bookstore, they had like a book that he had written about the making of the movie. And that one went for like $150 because Donald F. Glut's work kind of lands on that specter of, if you know him, it's really cool and you want to read what he's written, but it was never printed that much. Even that comic book I mentioned, the Dr. Spectre one, goes for like $150 because they only did like a limited run and it's kind of hard to get by. I wonder if there's like Donald F. Glut fans out there and they're all trying to like track down his work. I hope I'm creating fans here, but don't buy the stuff I wanted if I see it out there in the wild. Anyway, Dinosaur Valley Girls. This is a movie that I had never actually checked out because it just kind of looked like a softcore romp. And if you look at Donald F. Glut's filmography of feature films, most of his films are that they're like, you know, sexy Dracula, maybe a sexy mummy, is there sexy Frankenstein in there? Because for a period of time, that's what sold if you had nudity and things. And so that was clearly the funding that he could get to make his movies. Dinosaur Valley Girls, look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's good. I think it's fun. I would put it on the level of a Fred Olen Ray film, like a Bikini Drive-In, or things like that, that like, there are tons of references in it of stuff that Donald F. Glut loves, like the Three Stooges are playing on the television, that the names are references to other stuff. There's some super fun stop motion in it of dinosaurs, but it's just like a very, very, very light comedy about a bunch of cavemen. And in that classic kind of like, oh, I'm a super movie fan that's making this, Like, the cavemen don't even speak English. They just speak up a made-up language that Donald F. Glut made. And yeah, so it's all those little touches, even though that, like, I don't know if I can recommend this movie specifically, like just the movie on its own, unless you are a big fan of 1 million BC and caveman films. You need to see every stop motion dinosaur that's ever existed. Or you are like me and you love Blu-ray packages that are someone's life in a box, because man, that's what Visual Vengeance does. And this is right up there. I mean, first of all, you have two versions of the movie. You have a family-friendly version where all the breasts have been covered. If you've never seen the movie, why would you check that version out? But I love that it was included on this disc. And then you have the uncut version where there's the nudity, which was basically the selling point across the world, even though that Donald says that the family-friendly version he sold to USA Up All Night, and that was like one of the biggest paydays they got. And that's why I love the family version is included on this disc, because people probably have fond memories of catching it on TV, and now you can finally own it on disc. So there's two commentaries on this. There's both of them feature Glut and his pal Courtney Joyner. I only had time to listen to the new one. Loved it. Talked throughout. Tons of stories. For example, Donald says that there's a guy in the movie who plays one of the cavemen who just, the way that he got on screen was complicated. He felt he owed him a favor, and the guy was really difficult to work with. So as revenge, every time that actor appears on screen, he appears with a fart sound effect. They talk about old movie stars that they love, as well as all the references that you would never catch unless they were told to you. And it's just a delightful time. I love listening to this commentary. It makes the whole disc worthwhile. And then there's just an interview of Donald talking straight to camera, basically telling you how the movie came to life. He is an excellent storyteller. I had a blast with this special feature. And then there's a bunch of other stuff, mostly archival things like the making of Dinosaur Valley Girls, which is narrated by Blackula himself, who also appears in this picture. You have a look inside Don's legendary dinosaur museum, which is a new video. There's a song in the middle of the movie, Jurassic Punk, that, oh man, I can't get into this too much, but like Glut did multiple records that were all dinosaur-based songs, and this is an example of one that interrupts the movie. And you have a music video of that with lyrics. You have original storyboards, production image galleries, so much stuff, as well as like these packages that Visual Vengeance puts together. So you usually have new original art, and then you have an alternative original art, and then if you crack it open, you get the original box art on the other side as well. I love when a company does that, and this always comes with tons of stickers that are like based from the movie. This one just says Dinosaur Girls. You get a poster that's reversible, and you get like the classic VHS stickers as well. Oh man, isn't that cool? I love that Visual Vengeance always gives these feelies that don't feel like overwhelming or that you're paying an arm and a leg for them, because they're usually pretty reasonable when it comes to prices. So again, if you have a soft spot for like movie geek films and that you love hearing the creators talk about it, especially Courtney Joyner's all over this, and I love Courtney Joyner. He is like the special feature king as well as a great writer and director. Like, who doesn't love dinosaurs? Donald F. Glut loves dinosaurs. And it's all over this disc. Next up, this is the disclaimer I put at the beginning of this video, that I am involved in this disc of Furious. The person that runs Visual Vengeance reached out to me back in the day when I mentioned that I heard that Kung Fu Rascals was coming out, and he said, hey, if you're a fan of Kung Fu Rascals, we'd love to have you do a commentary track for it. I did it, and then he asked me afterwards, we have a few other martial arts related things to put out. Would you be interested in working on them as well? And I said, yes, I would love to work on these, especially Furious. And the reason that I really wanted to work on Furious was that we played this movie, me and my pal Peter Kaplowski, at a screening series we used to do at the Royal Cinema, Laser Blast Film Society. And Furious is one of those like transmission from outer space movies. It's so odd and out there, with a score completely composed of public domain Russian orchestral tracks, because the filmmakers knew that they could just play it and not have to pay for it, and it would sound kind of big. It's almost mostly a silent film. It stars Simon Rhee, who would go on to be a major stuntman as well. So it has kind of like crisp martial arts sequences in it. The filmmakers were young guys that were basically out of university, wanted to make a movie that would sell, and they knew that martial arts films were really big at the time. So that's why they made this picture. And to kind of jazz it up for themselves, they decided to make it like really weird and put as much into it as they could. And you hear stories about this film like they basically only ever shot one take for every scene because they calculated exactly how much film they needed. And it's kind of unbelievable when you consider how effective and fast moving the film is. Because when you hear that like, oh, they had to stretch it out as far as possible to the point that there's like flash frames of beginning and ending of scenes near the end of the movie, it doesn't really matter because it just works. I really, really love Furious, if you haven't been able to tell yet, as much as I've been ranting over it. And I was delighted that I was able to participate on this disc. Now, I will say that I've been hearing some people saying, oh, Justin, I can't wait for you to do a commentary. I just saw your name on it. I want to give a warning that the filmmakers are involved in this disc. There's an old commentary that was on a DVD, which I think is excellent. That's long out of print, was included on this. There's also hour-long interviews with both of the directors. So that includes Tim Everett as well as Tom Sartori, who are the both directors on this film. So when I went into the commentary track, I knew that it would not really make sense for me to try to get into the background on the making of the movie because like the filmmakers are all over this disc doing that. So the way that I approached it was that I partnered up with my pal, Peter Kaplowski, who's currently the programmer at the Toronto International Film Festival. He does Midnight Madness. We used to do Laser Blast together. And so the commentary is just me and him. We're watching the movie, we're commenting on it, but we're also kind of talking about why we find Furious special and also recommend other films in that genre that we played at the Laser Blast Film Society. Basically, the commentary is kind of a celebration of the series that me and Peter did, using Furious as the prism to get into, okay, so what are other films like this? Why do we like them? Why do we recommend them? Why don't they get watched enough, and why should you check them out? That was the way that we approached the commentary track. I guess you could kind of consider it like you're sitting with a bunch of pals and you're watching a movie that you've seen a million times and you're just kind of like bouncing ideas off of each other, talking about why you basically love the film at the end of the day and why you love films like that. So that's the commentary that I do. I also appear in 2 featurettes on this, which is basically where you're watching now, just me sitting, talking right to the camera, images pop up as I talk. And I rewatched it when I got the Blu-ray for this because I did them a couple years ago. It takes a long time for Blu-rays to come out. And I do one on no budget martial arts cinema, which is me going through a bunch of movies made by people who didn't have any studio backing or really any money behind them, martial arts oriented, and just highlighting my favorites. And hopefully if you watch it, you get a little inspiration, maybe approach them with a little bit more context than you would have otherwise. And I also do a video featurette on the Rhee brothers, who, as I mentioned, one of them stars in this movie. The other brother shows up as the villain. This was an interesting video featurette because it's really tough to encapsulate someone's career, which is mostly defined by stunt work, especially one as prolific and as wide-ranging as Simon Rhee. But I think I do it's weird, I'm doing an evaluation of my own video featurette on here, hopefully pointing you in the direction of movies that would be interesting. But that's just some guy talking about stuff disconnected from this. You really want to hear from the filmmakers, and they're all over this. You get every bit of information you would want in these special feeds. This is the thing about Visual Vengeance, is I've never picked up a disc by them that I've gone, oh, I wish there was more on this, or I feel that there's something that is not explored enough. And I think that's because they have the same people working on the special features from disc to disc. For example, Richard Schenkeman, who is the director of Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies, has kind of like carved his way into the feature-length documentary guy for Blu-rays, and I'm always excited to see when he has work on one of them, and he mostly does Visual Vengeance stuff. He used to do things for MVD Video as well, and you even have people like Mark Polonia, yes, that's right, the director of Splatter Farm, editing a lot of the interviews on the disc too, and I think that both of these guys have like honed their craft, and so I'm always excited to see when they're doing special features because they just get the good stuff. You always get like extra stuff as well, like Super 8 footage of the band that appears in the movie playing, the live concert of them, a music video reel. You have some short films on Super 8 of one of the directors. You get the original trailers. You get the reversible sleeve again, the 2-sided artwork. Like, This is the ultimate, oh man, you get a little throwing star in this one. This rules. Both of these releases, like, they're such easy recommendation. I know it may seem a little odd that I'm doing a review for a disc that I am on, but I genuinely want people to go out and buy it because it's good. If I didn't like it, I would not mention it very much. But man, the people at Visual Vengeance, they're doing it right, and I want them to keep doing it, keeping the prices as reasonable as they are, and being able to discover all the wild movies. They're finally giving special editions that I thought would never happen. If you enjoy this video, please subscribe. It really helps when I see those numbers go up and I see that people may be watching these videos. And if you want more physical media talk, please check out the Bay Street Video Podcast, which is a regular podcast that I do with Mark Hansen, who's the product manager, the guy that orders all the discs at a actual brick and mortar video store in Toronto, Ontario. We record in the store. We talk about all the new releases. We pick a random one to buy. You will always discover something new there. So please check out that podcast as well. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.